Hello everyone, it's me, the RetroDan. So, a few days ago I asked in a community post on the community tab of the channel if you guys would enjoy me talking about more Star Wars games, because if you don't know, I have talked about it a lot of times in this channel, and even throwing back to my first videos where I talked about the importance of Star Wars games in the Star Wars franchise. I am a big Star Wars fan, and I have a lot of Star Wars games. I have physical Star Wars movies and Star Wars merchandise, so I would consider myself a pretty big fan of the franchise. And that's something I want to reflect more on the channel, because I have a lot of Star Wars games that I would pretty much enjoy talking about on the channel. So I asked you guys what you guys would think if I reviewed or made videos on Star Wars games, either in clusters if we're talking like older consoles and shorter games, or like dedicated videos for Star Wars games. So when I was cruising through my library, because I have a separate section for Star Wars games in my Steam library, I was trying to decide which game to talk about. And I could just go to the normal games that everyone talks about, but I decided to talk about a game that I hadn't played yet on PC, because I got it way back when the PS4 was on its first years of life, and I decided that this was a game I actually wanted to talk about because despite all the controversy around it, I have very good memories of it. And that game is Star Wars Battlefront 2015. So this reboot of Star Wars Battlefront was released back in November 17 of 2015 for the PS4, Xbox One and PC, and it was not that well received for a couple of reasons. So the biggest reason out of it all is that the game was pretty much unorganized and uninspired when it came to gameplay and everything surrounding it. It was a fun game, there is value to get out of it, and people quite enjoyed it at the time because it was some of the best Star Wars games that had come out until then, but it was lacking clear direction. So it was missing a single player mode, it was missing good co-op modes, it was missing a lot of maps that later came only as DLC content for the game, such as the Death Star, and more maps that were added through DLC, and the progression was not that good because there were clearly some pay-to-win aspects to it that were influenced by EA having their hands on the game. But the point I want to make with this video, and the reason I chose to make a video about this game, is just how good this game looked for the 2015 standards. We have to understand that this was a game that came out on PS4, which, despite being 6th gen, or I don't remember if PlayStation 4 is 6th or 7th gen, I think it's 7th, so correct me if I'm wrong. This game was actually, in my honest opinion, one of the best looking games that came out on 2015 up until 2020, because this game, as surprising as it sounds, holds up very well even until today. And the video that reminded me of how good this game looked back then was a video that was really popular by an FPS or action shooter game channel that was very famous called Jack Frags, in which he showcased a 4K mod for the game that made the game look absolutely incredible. If you want to check out that video, go and search Jack Frags channel, and it's one of his most popular videos, so just sort by popular and find the video. But that video shows just how good this game could look for a 2015 game. And of course that was a 4K mod of the game, but that implies that a 4K mod was able to be made for a game back in 2015 that made it look as good as 2024 standards. So of course that means that the base graphics of the game were incredible, because you could easily transform them into what that video looked like. And I wanted to test it out myself, so I went back to the game because I had very few memories of playing it back on the PS4 with my cousin, and I sucked at it, and I had really bad internet, so I didn't properly play the game as I should have back then. But this game was just incredibly looking despite all its faults, and I think it's mainly due to DICE, because DICE puts a lot of work into these Star Wars games when it comes to environmental crafting, because they went out to the true locations of the game or of the franchise. At least in Star Wars Battlefront 2, I'm not sure if they went in that deep for Star Wars Battlefront, the original one from 2015, but they scanned the entire locations of where the original scenes were recorded in and made virtual maps to put in the game out of it, and it just looked amazing. And I think the particles in this game are something that really give life and make it, and as much of a meme as this sounds, the particle effects in this game make it feel like Star Wars, along with the sound design. So everything from the light that shines when you throw a grenade, and the sound effects of thermal imploders exploding in front of you, all come together to make what was a pretty decent Star Wars game. And I think when it came down to how the players felt about it, it didn't land as well with the Star Wars fan base nor the gamer player base, because it lacked a lot of content, it had a slow progression system. Despite me personally thinking that the moment-to-moment gameplay was pretty good, I can understand why people received and played this with skepticism, because it had flaws for certain. I'm not disregarding any of the flaws this game had. I think since we're almost reaching 10 years since the release of the game, we're now at 9, I think it's coming to that point where people are now remembering the game fondly. The people who played it back then, maybe ignoring that part of their brain that told them how bad some things were about the game. People are now reaching that phase of nostalgia from Star Wars Battlefront 2015 that is making them reminisce of the good things in the game. And I think if we have to take something out of this game and give DICE value for it, it is definitely the graphics. You could say whatever you want about the heroes being less than they should be, the entirety of the DLC thing behind the season pass and it being separated and very expensive. You can say anything about the progression system and the weapons being restricted through sometimes absurd challenges inside of the games, and the lack of a solo campaign and things for players to do who maybe are not that interested in online. But there is no denying that this is probably one of the best looking Star Wars games. And now the debate has come, and it has come ever since 2017, Battlefront 2017 released. Is this game better than Battlefront 2017? And if my memory is clouded, and I've played Battlefront 2 2017 way more than I've played Battlefront 2015, my personal opinion is that given the restrictions that they had with the PS4, I think they did much more with Battlefront 2015 than they did with Battlefront 2017. And that doesn't mean that the latter isn't a great looking game, because I certainly think it is, and it has more maps which can show even more of the Star Wars universe. But when it comes to effects and everything I've just talked about, I think 2015 did it much better. And I don't know what's that little thing that's lacking on 2017 to make it feel as good as 2015 lacked, because it's made by the same company. But if you have played both games, you will understand what someone means when they say 2015 looks way better than 2017. I didn't want to make a video about this game to go in depth into the details of what failed in this game, or maybe why it is dead nowadays and like nobody plays it, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's just the lack of content. People have no reason to play this game nowadays. But I thought I'd made a video remembering just how good the graphics were, so maybe some people could also think about this and give me their opinion. And I will talk about more Star Wars games coming in the future of the channel, because there are still a lot of Star Wars games I haven't played and that I want to cover. And we have things like the release of Star Wars Outlaws, which I eventually will want to cover here on the channel. But for now, I'll leave you with my opinion on the graphics of Battlefront 2015, and I hope you guys have some opinion on it. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video. This has been the Retro Den. I'm out.